The stables were quiet, save for the occasional snort from the horses and the soft rustling of hay underfoot. A single lantern swayed from a hook near the entrance, casting flickering shadows across the walls. Tritan and his companions approached cautiously, their boots crunching on the dirt floor. The stranger stood near one of the stalls, cloaked in shadow, his hood pulled low over his face.
I almost believed that you weren't going to show, but I'm glad you did,
the man said, his voice steady and calm, though it carried a weight of urgency.
We're here now. We need more details.
The stranger stepped forward into the lantern light, revealing a face partially obscured by the hood. His features were sharp, his eyes calculating but weary, as if burdened by a past he was trying to keep hidden. He reached into his cloak and pulled out a rolled parchment.
I tracked the goblins' movements after they raided my home, being very careful not to be detected,
he said, extending the map.
Their tracks lead to a cluster of caves at the base of the desolate peaks. They're likely hiding there.
Tritan accepted the map, but didn't unroll it immediately. Mezra moved closer, her keen eyes locked on the stranger.
You're certain these goblins have the amulet?
She asked, her voice calm yet probing.
They do, and more than that, they've taken personal items that are irreplaceable to me.
What kind of items?
Mezra pressed. The stranger hesitated, his hand tightening into a fist.
A locket that belonged to my wife, my wedding band, and a few pieces of her jewelry I kept after she passed away.
His voice softened, tinged with sorrow.
They have no value to anyone but me.
Lana leaned casually against a wooden post, arms crossed.
And the amulet? What's so special about it?
The man's gaze shifted to her, cold and unyielding.
It's valuable. That's all you need to know.
Venn, lounging with an air of indifference, raised an eyebrow.
You're quite the storyteller. You could have joined the Bardic Guild with a tale like that.
The stranger ignored him, turning back to Tritan.
I'll pay you 30% of the reward now, and the remaining 70% will be yours once you return the amulet and my belongings,
he said, retrieving a pouch from his belt and tossing it toward Tritan. Tritan caught the pouch and opened it briefly.
A generous offer.
The glint of coins catching the dim light.
But why not hire someone else? Why us?
Because you're capable. I've heard what you've done for Lord Grell.
Mezra's brow furrowed.
Our contract with Lord Grell is not common knowledge. How did you know about that?
Word gets around,
the stranger said dismissively. Grod, who had been standing silently in the background, finally spoke up.
And what's to stop us from taking the down payment and leaving you in the dust?
The man's gaze hardened, locking onto the dwarf.
You could try, but I suspect you value your reputations too much for that.
Tritan held up a hand to calm the growing tension.
We'll take the job. But if we find out you're not being honest with us...
I am,
the man interrupted, his voice resolute.
You have all the information you need. Bring me what's mine.
With that, he turned and strode out of the stables, his cloak billowing behind him as he disappeared into the night. Back at the inn, the group prepared for the night. Mezra, Grod, and Venn retired early, their exhaustion evident in the heavy tread of their steps. The air outside the inn was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of pine and earth. The quiet hum of nocturnal insects filled the space between Tritan and Lana as they stood just beyond the flickering lantern light. Tritan's arms were crossed, his posture steady yet heavy with thought. Lana, leaning against the inn's wooden exterior, stared out into the darkness with a defiant tilt to her chin.
We need to talk,
Tritan began, his voice calm, but with an unmistakable edge of authority. Lana rolled her eyes and let out a sigh.
Is this going to be another one of your lectures, oh fearless leader? Because if it is, I'll save you the time and say, I already know what you're going to say.
Tritan frowned, his jaw tightening.
This isn't about scolding you, Lana. It's about keeping us alive. What happened at the tavern last night? That could have ended far worse than it did. Do you even realize the risk you put us in with your stunt?
Lana pushed off the wall, her expression shifting to one of defiance.
Oh, please. Those drunkards could barely hold their balance, let alone a grudge. Besides, no one got seriously hurt.
No one got hurt because we had to intervene. You're not acting like part of a team, Lana. You're acting like a lone wolf, and it's going to get someone killed one day.
Tritan snapped. The words hung heavy in the air, and Lana's defiance faltered. She turned her back to him, her arms wrapped around herself as if shielding against the weight of the accusation.
You don't know what it's like, Tritan, to grow up with nothing, no family, no home, just surviving day by day, scraping together enough to make it through the night. Stealing isn't just some hobby for me. It's survival,
she said, her voice quieter now but laced with emotion. Tritan stepped closer, his tone softening but still firm.
I do understand survival, Lana. More than you think. We've all faced struggles, but there's a difference between surviving and living. You're not that scared child anymore. You have people around you now. People who rely on you, just like you rely on us.
Lana turned to face him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears.
And what happens when you're gone, Tritan? What happens when this so-called team falls apart? People leave. They die. They abandon you when things get tough. That's the one lesson I've learned in this life.
Tritan let out a slow breath, his gaze steady as he looked at her.
We're not those people, Lana. This group, Mezra, Grod, Venn, and me, we've stuck by each other through every hell we've walked into. We're not perfect, but we're not going anywhere. But if you keep acting like this, like we don't matter, then you're the one who'll tear this group apart.
Lana's defiance crumbled, and she looked down at her boots, her voice cracking.
I don't know how to stop. It's all I know, Tritan. I see an opportunity, and I take it. I can't just turn that off.
Tritan placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm yet reassuring.
I'm not asking you to change overnight, but I am asking you to try. To think about what's best for the group, not just yourself. We all want to survive, Lana, but we do that by sticking together, not by chasing after every coin and trinket we come across.
A single tear slid down Lana's cheek, and she quickly wiped it away.
I'll try,
she whispered, her voice barely audible.
But I can't promise anything.
That's all I need to hear,
Tritan said, offering a faint smile. For a moment, they stood in silence, the tension between them easing into something closer to understanding. The night around them felt less heavy, though the weight of their journey ahead remained.
Come on, we've got a long road tomorrow. Let's get some rest,
Tritan said, after a pause. Lana nodded, and together they turned back toward the inn, the fragile beginnings of trust forming between them as they prepared to face the dangers that awaited. The morning sun filtered through the dense canopy of the Everin forest, dappling the path ahead with patches of golden light. Tritan led the group with steady resolve, his sword sheathed at his side. Mezra walked beside him, her staff in hand, her expression calm and observant. Behind them, Venn twirled his whip, the braided leather making faint, sharp snaps in the air as he practiced his technique. Grod followed, his stout legs trudging along with the determination of someone who would rather be anywhere else. And Lana, ever the shadow, brought up the rear. Her sharp eyes were constantly scanning, not just the trail but the surroundings. The forest was too quiet, and that silence always spoke volumes to her. Their journey had been uneventful, though the weight of the strange man's request hung over them like a storm cloud. The crude map he had drawn was clutched in Tritan's hand, leading them toward the desolate peaks. At the base of the mountains, according to the map, lay a cluster of caves where the goblins were believed to have taken refuge. Grod's grumbling broke the stillness of the morning.
If I'd known this quest came with a mandatory hike, I'd have demanded more ale before leaving. My feet feel like they've been gnawed on by wolves.
You could have stayed behind.
Mezra quipped lightly, though her gaze never left the path ahead.
And miss the chance to bash some goblin skulls? Not likely,
Grod retorted. Venn grinned, snapping his whip theatrically.
Cheer up, Grod. Maybe the goblins will be kind enough to offer us a comfortable chair and a cup of tea before we start the bashing.
Tritan raised a hand, halting the group. The air was different now, cooler, with a faint metallic tang that hinted at the nearby mountains. The trees had begun to thin, and the ground sloped upward toward the looming desolate peaks.
We're getting close,
Tritan said, unfolding the map.
According to this, the caves should be just beyond those rocks.
Good. Let's get this over with,
Grod muttered, adjusting the grip on his axe.
I'll scout ahead. If there are goblins lurking nearby, I'll spot them before they spot us,
Lana said, stepping forward. Her voice was calm, but her sharp gaze betrayed her vigilance. Tritan hesitated for a moment before nodding.
Be careful.
Lana melted into the shadows of the trees, her movements silent and precise. As she moved, she kept an eye out for signs of traps or scouts, disturbed dirt, broken branches, unnatural patterns in the foliage. Her sharp instincts guided her to the base of a large rock formation, where she crouched and surveyed the area. The cave entrance was exactly where the map indicated, a dark opening partially obscured by brambles and jagged rocks. Tracks littered the ground, confirming recent goblin activity. Lana noted the direction of the tracks, their depth, and how they converged near the entrance. These creatures were not only active, but likely organized. She also spotted something else, a faint, deliberate scrape on a nearby tree. It wasn't natural, too clean, too precise. Her heart quickened. The mark was subtle, almost invisible to an untrained eye, but Lana recognized it instantly. It was an encrypted message, though its specific meaning eluded her without additional context. Her lips curled into a sly smile as she traced the mark with her fingers.
Find anything?
Triton's voice startled her slightly as he approached.
Tracks. They're fresh. Looks like this is the place.
Triton nodded.
Good work. Let's regroup.
They returned to the others, and Triton quickly relays Lana's findings.
So, we're going in blind? Sounds like fun.
Grod asked, hefting his axe.
Not completely blind. We know they're active. That's enough to stay cautious.
As if summoned by her words, a guttural laugh echoed from the trees. The adventurers froze as a group of goblins emerged from the brush, their greenish skin glinting in the faint sunlight. Their mismatched armor clinked as they fanned out, crude weapons glinting menacingly. At their center stood a larger goblin with a jagged blade strapped across his back, his crooked teeth bared in a twisted grin. The larger goblin sneered, his voice sharp and mocking.
What do we have here? Lost travelers, or fools who've wandered too far from the safety of their town?
Triton stepped forward, slowly unsheathing his sword.
We're here for the amulet and the other items you stole. Hand them over, and we'll leave peacefully.
The goblin leader's grin widened.
Oh, you're here for our treasures. How bold. Drop your weapons, leave your valuables, and maybe we won't skin you alive.
Grod snorted, hefting his axe.
Try it, Runt. I'd love to see how long you'd last.
The goblins growled, their beady eyes narrowing. The tension thickened as both sides braced for a fight. Triton raised a hand, addressing the goblin leader again.
We don't have to do this. We just want what belongs to the man you stole from. No one else has to get hurt.
The goblin leader let out a harsh laugh.
It belongs to whoever's strong enough to keep it. And right now, that's us.
He raised his arm, signaling his warriors.
Kill them.
The goblins surged forward with shrill war cries. Triton met their charge head-on, his shield colliding with the first goblin to reach him. The creature stumbled back, only to be met with a swift slash from Triton's sword. Mezra chanted under her breath, her staff glowing as she unleashed a burst of flame that scattered several goblins, their cries of pain echoing in the chaos. Grod roared with battle lust, his axe swinging in wide arcs, cleaving through goblin armor with ease.
Come on, you little rats! Is that all you got?
Venn cracked his whip, its sharp snap resounding as it coiled around a goblin's arm. With a deft pull, he disarmed the creature and sent it sprawling.
You really don't know how to pick your battles, do you?
Meanwhile, Lana moved like a wraith, her daggers flashing in the dim light. She targeted the goblins attempting to flank the group, dispatching them quickly and efficiently. The goblin leader barked orders, trying to rally his dwindling forces. He lunged at Triton with his jagged blade, but the seasoned fighter parried the strike, countering with a blow that left a deep gash in the goblin's side. The leader staggered back, clutching his wound. His eyes darted around, realizing the tide of the battle had turned.
Enough.
He snarled, raising his hands in surrender.
I yield.
The remaining goblins hesitated, then dropped their weapons and fled into the forest. Tritan kept his sword trained on the leader.
Where's the amulet?
The goblin leader wheezed, blood dripping from his side.
In the cave, with the rest of the loot. Take it and go. Just don't kill me.
Mezra stepped forward, her eyes cold.
You'd better be telling the truth. If this is a trick...
It's not. Please, just take it and leave.
The goblin leader cried. Tritan exchanged a glance with Lana, pointing at the cave entrance.
Lana, check the cave. Venn, keep an eye on our friend here.
Lana nodded, disappearing into the shadows of the cave entrance.
Oh, gladly.
Venn said, acknowledging Tritan, stepping forward with a wicked grin. He crouched down to the goblin leader's level, his voice dripping with sarcasm.
You, my dear goblin, are a walking tragedy. Look at you, a fearsome leader reduced to a groveling green sack of regret. Tell me, does your mother know you've chosen such a lucrative career in cave squatting and treasure theft? Or is she too busy lamenting that she didn't drop you off with the kobolds instead?
The goblin leader glared weakly at Venn.
I'm a proud goblin warrior.
Warrior?
Venn interrupted, feigning astonishment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have missed your impressive battle skills somewhere between your crying and your bleeding. Truly, I stand corrected. Someone get this poor fellow a throne. He's clearly royalty.
A few moments later, Lana emerged from the cave, carrying a medium-sized sack.
Looks like he wasn't lying.
Tritan opened the bag, inspecting its contents. The amulet gleamed faintly in the light, its intricate design hinting at its power.
Let's go. We've got what we came for.
Tritan said, his voice firm as he sheathed his sword. As the group turned to leave, Grod gave the goblin leader a hard glare.
If you try this again, you sorry sack of slime, we'll come back, and we won't be as forgiving.
The goblin leader winced and groaned at the pain, clutching his side as the adventurers disappeared into the forest, their prize in hand. But as they walked, Lana's gaze flicked to the trees once more, searching for the faint markings she had seen earlier. Whatever secrets this forest held, she wasn't about to let them slip away unnoticed. She trailed behind the group after snatching the coin purse from the goblin leader. Tritan turned to Lana and gave her a nod, a silent acknowledgement of their shared efforts. She met his gaze and returned the gesture, her expression carrying a quiet realization that despite her usual independence, she was truly part of a team capable of working together.